What's a really simple thing that can actually kill someone accidentally that isn't common knowledge? If potatoes are not stored properly and becomes rotten, it produces a toxic gas and can make a person unconscious if they've inhaled enough, and or even death in some cases. There was a news article back in 2013 of an entire family in Russia that was killed by it. Not just killed by it. Killed one by one. Each member of the family kept going to the cellar to find the others and then passing out from the gas. I almost died from this as a kid. My grandma had a potato box in her kitchen, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a wooden box about the size of a trash can and has a lid on top. You store potatoes in it. When I was 10 or so, I was playing in the kitchen and I got curious about it. I was never especially interested because, it was a potato box. What do I want to look at some potatoes for? But for whatever reason I got curious, opened the lid, and woke up on the floor some time later with my chest burning so badly that I could barely draw a breath to cry for what felt like ages. I didn't find out why that happened exactly until I was an adult and saw a comment like this on Reddit, but I was scared to even go near the damn potato box for the rest of my childhood. Lol. Oleander. Many people forget they're poisonous. Its long straight branches look ideal for roasting food over a fire. About 20 children die each year in California from this plant. As they roast marshmallows, the sap inside the stick seeps out and into the food. The smoke they produce is also poisonous. Some folks have asked for clarification on the number of deaths. The number cited was given to me by a doctor of biology, PhD, but it was a while ago. She was infinitely more intelligent than me, and I have no reason to doubt her. That said, I imagine the fatalities vary each year. It is a popular, hardy, ornamental plant found in many backyards. Driving home from work in heavy traffic, my sister saw a mother pick an oleander flower from a hedge to give to her baby/toddler in a pram. She U-turned, raced back to them, pulled up on the curb next to the mum too, rather frantically, tell her to take the flower away from her child as it could kill them. Do not pick flowers, or plants in general, if you don't know what they are, especially not to give to children of an age prone to eating them. Dumb cane, oleander, daffodils, philodendron. All super common house plants. A few that can kill with even the smallest of doses. A dental infection. I went to grief support meetings, and a woman there lost her son to an impacted tooth that spread infection to his brain. This is why seeing those veneer techs pop up drives me insane. Some of them are putting veneers/crowns over decay, not knowing, or not caring, that it will probably create an abscess or infection. It is so dangerous. A grape. My wife had a friend/coworker whose young daughter choked to death in front of her and her mother. They tried to dislodge the grape and nothing worked. By the time an ambulance got there, the girl was brain dead. It's about the worst thing I can imagine as a parent. We were cutting our kids' grapes in half until they were 10 after that happening. When I was 2, I was at a family party and grabbed a whole grape out of the fruit salad and choked. My Aunt Nancy was 10 natty lights deep and performed the Heimlich maneuver and saved my life. She passed away earlier this year. R.I.P. Aunt Nancy. The drunk aunt saving a toddler's life reminds me of the time my college roommate went to a family reunion, had too much to drink, threw up in the pool, because somehow she thought it was better than throwing up on the grass, noticed a dark murky figure at the bottom of the pool, dove in and saved her 18-month-old cousin's life. No one had noticed the baby had fallen in the pool. She went from pariah to hero in the span of 20 seconds. Former rural ER doctor here. Things that I have seen either nearly kill or actually kill someone. 1. Taking a drug at a party/rave/concert/etc. Surprise, it's got fentanyl or carfentanil in it. And now you're dead or permanently brain damaged. 2. Sticking your hand/arm/leg/head out a window while the car is driving. This is how you either lose a limb or lose your head if you get in an accident or someone sideswipes you. Keep your body parts in the vehicle. 3. Not vaccinating your kid. Watching kids die or become permanently disabled because of preventable diseases is both the saddest and most infuriating things I've ever dealt with in my career. If you want to rip on me about how much you hate vaccines, STFU and save it for someone who cares. I'm not interested and I won't entertain your BS. 4. Medications that you should not forget. Your insulin. Your asthma medication. Your EpiPen. Your various heart medications. Your blood thinner. I've seen all these missed drugs end up in very serious consequences in the ER. 5. Not knowing the signs and symptoms of a stroke. 6. Drink/doing drugs and driving. Also, if you are going to get super drunk, I promise you that the absolute worst place to walk home is along a highway. 7. Looking at your phone and driving. 8. Dropping tools/any item from high places. I've seen this happen once in a construction site, and he lived, but I've heard of those that have not. 9. Operating power tools. Doesn't necessarily kill someone, but it was the #1 reason I was sewing people up or sending them to plastic surgeons. 10. Finally, please don't get up on a ladder without properly securing/stabilizing it and having someone in the near vicinity to call 911 if you fall off it, instead of finding you several hours later. People don't realize that a lot of people who die in house fires die in their sleep. The fire is too small to wake them from the heat alone, or it's farther away, yet it is releasing carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide along with a ton of other toxic fumes into the air. You are just sleeping, breathing in that gas, which makes you even more tired and eventually completely unconscious, then dead. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes. Kind of crazy how upvoted this got. Hopefully it scared a few people into checking their fire alarms/CO detectors, or scared a few people into installing some. If you don't have them, this is a big PSA. Fire alarms increase your survivability in a fire by a ton. Literally, you have a 50% better chance of survival with one compared to those without. Even better if you can get laser fire alarms. Get/check those alarms, and make a plan in case of fires, and get fire extinguishers/learn how and when to use them if you can afford to, if not for you but those you care about in your home. Check your batteries. Wish you all the best. Hitting your head. R/TBI, traumatic brain injury, is full of stories about simple slips and falls that resulted in death, at least temporarily, and lasting effects. I simply fell on ice at work. Bam. Unconscious, woke up saying I was okay. Got talked into getting in an ambulance. Started dying in the ambulance from a severe brain bleed. Coma, expected to die, survived. Lost most of my memory, emotional stability, the ability to easily make new memories, a ton of IQ. Still, in all, I'm not dead. Edit. So many stories. So much loss. So sorry for all your losses. And carry the information to others. I'm so happy that protocols for brain injuries have improved so much. If you hit your head and lose consciousness, get to a hospital stat. Be careful. And wear a damn helmet. Your life is important. Just did a rotation in a rehab hospital. I was on the stroke unit, but you would be shocked at how many people over in brain injury had fallen off those stupid e-scooters. Also, I'm sorry to hear about your accident. As you said, TBI can change your life pretty quickly. Sounds like you have the right outlook, though. Inhaling helium. Plus, helium is used medically and is finite, so shouldn't be wasted in balloons anyway. I was looking for this. A while ago I took a breath from a helium balloon, made a funny voice for the kids, ha 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 yada yada. I then made the mistake of immediately taking another deep breath from the balloon without taking any air in between. Almost immediately I started losing consciousness. Luckily I remembered I'd seen an episode of 1000 Ways to Die where some college kids climbed into a massive helium balloon and died within minutes, so I knew right away what was happening and quickly started taking deep breaths. I was fine within 5 minutes, but it was scary AF. Over drinking water. Hijacking your comment, giving little babies water to drink. Doesn't have to be much, it kills them very easy. Playing in a deep hole at the beach. I had a friend who as a student had a holiday job in construction. One day he was digging a trench which collapsed on him and he was dug out by his crew. It was about midday, but they all knocked off for the day and went to the pub where they all got drunk, which he thought was great as they were buying. When he asked if it was some sort of tradition, they explained that usually the person caught in the trench didn't survive. Being shoved. Seen too many videos of fights/scuffles where someone is shoved or punched, and the trip on concrete and suffer fatal TBIs hitting their head on concrete. The brain is fragile. Protect it. One of my friends was mucking around with me at school kinda play fighting, and tripped me over. I hit my head on the concrete, and I have 2 vague memories after falling of being walked through the hallways supported by someone, then appearing in the nurse's office. I was proper concussed by the incident and had a routine CT scan to check for brain injury. That was fine, but they inadvertently found an arachnoid cyst which was 13 centimeters long and taking up about 1/3 of my skull, pushing my brain to the side. To briefly explain what that is, your brain is surrounded by a membrane, and in between that membrane and your brain is called the subarachnoid space. Cerebrospinal fluid goes through fluid pathways in that space to coat your brain. Due to a defect that was likely there since birth, one of the fluid pathways had a dead end, and from the natural circulation of CS fluid this was extremely slowly filling up that part of the membrane like a water balloon. Your brain is actually extremely compressible like a sponge with no bad effects to a certain point if it happens slowly enough. I likely would not have detected the cyst until eventually starting to get really bad migraines and more serious symptoms a lot later in life. Had an operation to have an internal tube installed that now drains the cyst like an IV drip into my abdominal cavity. Since CS fluid is basically just saline, it just gets harmlessly absorbed by the tissue there. TLDR, got concussed from a fall, brain scan after found a much more serious medical issue purely by coincidence. Since this blew up a bit more than I expected, here's a CT shot of the cyst for the curious. Brain is white, the cyst is the dark area. Confined spaces. If it only has one way in and out, especially if it is below ground, there is a very real possibility that there isn't enough oxygen in there to support life. Even something as simple as rusting metal can remove the oxygen from the air, and if there isn't airflow going through the space, the oxygen-depleted air won't be replaced. Other processes can remove oxygen or produce actively toxic gases. This sort of thing often kills more than one person, as the first person to find the victim goes in to rescue them and becomes the second victim. Also, to fully understand how dangerous this is, a person has to understand that your body does not tell you you're suffocating in a low oxygen environment. It's not like you feel you're choking or can't breathe. Breathing feels normal, you just get lightheaded and a few moments later you're unconscious. Our feeling of suffocating, like when you're holding your breath, is from a buildup of CO2 in the lungs. But if you're able to breathe that CO2 out, you'll feel fine, even if you're not breathing any oxygen in. Pressure washers are quite lethal. Can confirm, pressure washers are dangerous. My one stripped a layer of my sandal sole off when I accidentally blasted my foot with it, and it stung for about a day. It's not a super duper ultra powerful pressure washer either. To add to this thread, wearing sandals while pressure washing is unsafe. If you see somebody on the ground who has had an accident, don't move them unless you have to. They could have a spinal injury. This is especially true about motorcyclists. Leave their helmet on. That helmet could be the only thing keeping their skull together at that moment. If you remove it, they can die. And for God's sake, if you see someone bleeding profusely and you can't get it to stop, reach for the tourniquet. But also don't take that tourniquet off unless you are a licensed medical practitioner. And write the time. It's not super critical that you write the time, but allows the doctors to know how long the tourniquet's been on and if they're going to need special practices to filter the blood before they release the tourniquet. Edit, if you see somebody on the ground who is in imminent danger, moving them is more important than spinal injury risks. Better than be paralyzed than burned to death. With that said, try not to mess with the helmet if you don't have to. If they aren't breathing, and you know how to make them start breathing again, pull the helmet. If they have filled the helmet full of vomit, pull the helmet. But also there's quite a bit of space between my mouth and the chin of my helmet. I made garlic infused olive oil once. Left it out because that's how I always saw it on people counters. Used it a few weeks later. Botulism. Was out for 4 whole days writhing in pain with nothing left to expel. Turns out, I could have died. Preserving anything in a low-acid environment is a recipe for botulism. Damn spores are so resistant, even making garlic oil by boiling garlic in oil on the stovetop isn't enough to destroy them. Anytime I want garlic oil, I make it on the spot and consume that day. Glad you made it. For the love of God, when you're boiling water on the stove, turn the handles of your pots inward. My grandmother's sister, when she was a toddler, was running around with her arms in the air and smacked the handle of a pot of boiling water. The water poured all over her and she died a few days later from her injuries. Because of that, all throughout my life it was drilled into me to A, use the back burners first, and B, if you need to use the front burners, turn the handles in. It wasn't until I became an adult and moved in with roommates/so's that I realized so many people don't think to do that. A high-pressure puncture wound/high-pressure injections. Imagine you're wearing all your personal protective equipment, got your goggles, your gloves, etc., and you're working with high-pressure liquids. I'm not talking cutting steel with water jets, just something with high enough pressure that can pierce or puncture the skin. And bang, you get a little stab from a pressurized fluid source. Not even bleeding that much, if at all, sometimes it's just a little sting, but you go to medical and get the assistance, and after a day, your hand is sore but otherwise fine. If you obtain one of these injuries and don't alert the medical staff, you typically lose the limb. It can be just as bad with water/steam as with chemicals. This was a safety moment at my company due to a mechanic getting a pinprick while changing a line. While he went for medical help, he didn't tell them it was a high-pressure wound. As such, he progressively lost 3 fingers on his hand because the substances were blasted into muscle tissues and caused necrosis, slowly. Not fluids, but I had a teacher in the union who had a nail in his brain. He was an elevator worker and shooting very, very thin nails into the shaft to reinforce certain parts. He said one sparked and he thought nothing of it. When he came up, his buddy noticed a tiny hole and crack in his glasses and told him he needs to get it checked out. Teacher insisted he probably just dropped them earlier, but the coworker made him go to the ER. And of course they found a 3-inch nail in his brain and couldn't remove it. It's a miracle it never affected him or anything. He was the one that got me to buy S&W ballistic safety glasses that can stop a .22 mag. Wear 'em every day. Edit, to clarify, the nail went in right next to his eye, more to the sides of the glasses. As far as I know, it is still in his brain to this day. It was a very thin nail. He has to take some pills to prevent some kind of further damage from the metal too, I believe. It happened in the late 90s. I haven't seen him since I left the union 5 years ago. Party buses. My wife's cousin was on one a couple of years ago. They were all dancing on the bus while it was driving on the 101 freeway in LA, and she slipped and fell against the door. The door gave way and she fell out of the bus at freeway speeds and was immediately run over by a car. There wasn't much left of her, closed casket for sure. She was celebrating her 30th birthday, but instead she died and left behind 5 kids all under 10. Jack Daniels died because he kicked his safe. Yes, that Jack Daniels. He broke his toe when he kicked it. Bone marrow entered his bloodstream and in about a week, the dude was done. Recently did the tour. It was months and several surgeries later that he died from sepsis. The joke is he came into work early and forgot the combination and in frustration kicked it. The employees joke that coming to work early will kill you. Don't ration your water if you get lost in the woods. Many hikers die of dehydration with a backpack full of water. The best place to store your water is inside you. Because the human body is well adapted to conserving water and has a lot of tricks to use. But being dehydrated actually causes you to use more water, which makes the problem worse. That said, don't guzzle it all down at once, of course. If you drink too much at once, your body will need to get rid of the excess water to maintain balance, so you'll soon be uselessly pissing it out. Just continue drinking water at a normal rate, as if nothing is wrong. I don't think people realize that one punch can kill a person. That is why nobody should be violent. Also a different kind of thing. Traces of nut. I did not know just touching something that somebody who had touched a nut could cause an allergy for somebody. According to family lore, my great-grandfather accidentally killed a man by punching him once. He was guilt-ridden about this for the rest of his life, and it turned into one of those things nobody ever talked about until his generation died off. An abscess tooth. Lost a friend who just figured it was a regular toothache. The infection made its way into his bloodstream and that was it. I had a tooth infection last year. It was weekend and 2 days with bank holidays after that, so I went to the ER. Half my face was swollen, and the ER doctor had the audacity to ask me why I was there. Why couldn't I just go to a dentist or wait for the GP next week? He was so mad, but he prescribed antibiotics. I think it dawned on him that the dentist was already closed and it was a long weekend, but he didn't say anything, just wrote the prescription and told me to leave. He also told me I wasted his time. Yeah, wasting 2 minutes of his time instead of wasting a lot of resources a week or so later due to sepsis. I should have reported him. Crowded balconies or decks. When they're over capacity, they can collapse. Oof, this happened in Berkeley about 10 years ago right near me and my friends. We were just walking down the street near the library. UC Berkeley has Irish exchange students every summer for sports like soccer. There was a big party in someone's apartment downtown off Shattuck. 8 guys, all Irish exchange students, who'd been drinking heavily, decided to hang out on the balcony. Except it wasn't a balcony, it was a large decorative stone planter box, maybe 6 feet by 2 feet, that suddenly broke off of the building and fell 4 stories. They all died right there. We spent the whole night drinking on a rooftop and crying after that. Can't imagine how their families must have felt. I was on a J1 that summer in Santa Barbara, so this was big news to all of us Irish over the summer and was so devastating. Few details slightly wrong with your post, just want to correct it for anyone reading. 7 died, 6 Irish, 1 Irish American. They were likely drinking, but no evidence or necessity in mentioning they were drinking heavily. You've also made it sound like it wasn't a real balcony and almost like it was their fault for all standing on a decorative planter. It was an actual balcony, and the cause of failure was dry rot from poor maintenance and construction of the balcony. During litigation, it was found the contractors cut corners in the construction to cut costs. The balcony was rated to hold the weight of almost double the amount of people that were on it. The kids did nothing wrong. Allergies. My wife and I were at a Cracker Barrel and my wife ordered a salad. She asked for no bacon. She explained to the waiter that it was a bad allergy. Food is delivered and there is bacon on the salad. We send it back and reiterate the health implications. The waiter brings it back, and it was clearly the same salad as before but with the bacon scraped off. Some bacon pieces were still in the bottom of the bowl. At this point I asked for the manager. I explained what happened, what we told his waiter, and then showed him the bacon on the plate that got returned to us. He looked furious, excused himself briefly and returned with a fresh salad. Assured us he made it himself and to not worry. Then disappeared with the waiter for 5 minutes. I don't know what he said, but the waiter was visibly down the remainder of the evening. My wife winds up spending an entire day puking with an agonizing migraine and severe pain under every joint in her body after contact with any pork, gelatin and chemical derivatives included. Other people aren't so lucky and go into anaphylaxis. Just don't cross-contaminate food or assume someone is just being picky. You might kill them. Going to include very few details because I don't want to ever deal with him finding this post. I have a friend who is the most loving and gentle father to his kids that he could be. Pure love for his family ever since he became a parent. All the kids are very young, one of them was maybe 3, and like toddlers they tend to explore and go wherever they can. One of those simple activities we all do every day without thinking about it. One day in the morning ready to go to work, he backs his car out of the garage, stops in the driveway because he forgot something inside. In between those slight hectic moments of being late, going in and out of a door, his 3-year-old wanders out into the garage, and just outside. My friend returned to the car, puts it in reverse ready to hurry to work like any other day, and bumps into his child who just happens to be in a blind spot near the corner of the bumper. He was only going maybe 3 to 4 meters per hour, but for a child's head, that's all it takes to create severe trauma that became a brain bleed situation, and he passed a couple hours later in the hospital. This is a man who has lived life the right way and helped people every chance I've ever known, but this world is just an absolutely harsh, random bitch. When I was growing up, my mom knew a woman who did the exact same thing and accidentally killed her son. That story has always haunted me, and I'm always sure to double check when I back up in my car, just in case. That is just one of the worst possible things I can imagine a parent going through. My understanding is this is why all new cars are required to be manufactured with backup cameras. This is also one of the many reasons I find it so upsetting that cars and trucks just keep getting bigger and bigger. Some of the beasts I see out there on the road are so tall that you wouldn't even be able to see a child from the driver's seat even if they were standing right in front of the vehicle.